Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take all that complex academic research, the stuff that's usually pretty dense, and we give you a real shortcut to actually understanding it. Fast, thorough. That's the goal.
Yeah, and today we're tackling something that, well, let's be honest, drives a lot of people crazy. Second language acquisition, SLA.
Oh, definitely. It feels like everyone has a method, but so much of it just doesn't seem to work, or it's based on, like, old classroom stuff.
Exactly. It's just saturated with conflicting ideas, maybe strategies that aren't that effective. Our mission here is to really cut through that. We want to pull out the core principles, the psychological shortcuts, if you like, that actually let you get fluent.
Faster, and hopefully with, less of that crushing anxiety that often comes with it.
Right. We're aiming for fluency that feels more automatic, more thorough. This deep dive, it's kind of like your manual for, well, for programming your brain to think like a polyglot.
And the big idea we're really focusing on today, the sort of master key, is making language learning feel less like a chore.
Yes. And more like something you just have to do. Because it's interesting. We're calling it Compulsory Comprehensible Input. Compulsory CI.
Compulsory CI. Okay. So the idea is that it should be so engaging, so relevant to you personally.
That the actual effort, it just kind of vanishes. You forget you're even using a foreign language because you're so caught up in the message.
That sounds like the dream, honestly.
It's the science of interest, really.
Yeah.
If we can make learning feel compulsory because you're genuinely curious, we basically unlock the brain's most powerful learning engine.
So the goal is automatic speaking, forgetting the rules. It just happens.
That's the destination. But first, we need to lay down some groundwork, some fundamental science.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. There's this key distinction, right, between acquiring a language and learning it.
Absolutely crucial. And this comes largely from Stephen Krashen's work. It's non-negotiable if you want real success. So language acquisition. That's the subconscious bit.
Like how a kid picks up their first language.
Exactly like that. It's intuitive. It's pattern spotting. When you acquire language, you develop this feel for what's right. Sentences just sound correct.
Even if you can't explain the grammar rule behind it.
Precisely. You might know something's wrong, but explaining why, that's harder. It's that gut feeling of correctness.
I know that feeling. You correct someone, they ask why, and you just go, it sounds weird.
That's acquisition in action. Now, contrast that with language learning.
Sure.
This is the conscious stuff. Formal classes, grammar drills, memorizing verb tables, trying to consciously apply rules while you're talking.
The stuff most of us remember from school.
Yeah, usually. And
Yeah.
it produces learned competence. Sure, you know the rules. But trying to use that knowledge in real time, it's slow, it's clunky. Your internal grammar checker, the monitor, as Krashen calls it, just can't keep up with a real conversation.
Okay, so we want acquisition. That subconscious engine is still there, even in adults.
It never turns off. But, and this is the key, we need to feed it the right kind of fuel. And that fuel is comprehensible input, CII.
Right. The input hypothesis. This is central, isn't it?
It's the absolute pillar. Acquisition happens when you're exposed to language that's just a little bit beyond your current level. But, crucially, you need to be able to understand most of it from context. Krashen called this I+1.
Your current level I plus one step up.
Exactly. The input needs to be understandable, but also contain things you haven't quite acquired yet. That little bit of challenge pushes your brain to figure things out, to grow its internal map of the language.
But how do you know what I+1 is? It sounds a bit abstract. Is it like a precise calculation?
Oh, definitely not precise. That's a really important point. It's more about finding the right zone. If you're, say, comfortable with simple stories.
Like graded readers?
Yeah, perfect example. If that's your eye, then jumping straight into, I don't know, watching a dense political debate or reading academic papers, that's not I+1. That's like I+10 or I+20.
Right, that would just be noise. Stressful noise.
Totally overwhelming. It raises the filter, which we'll get to, so you become demotivated. No, you need stuff that's just slightly more complex than those graded readers.
So maybe like YouTube channels aimed at intermediate learners. Or news articles with lots of pictures.
Exactly. Content that's roughly tuned, not finely tuned. Think about how parents talk to kids' caretaker speech. They don't consciously simplify everything to teach specific grammar points. They just talk in a way the child can mostly understand, but they naturally throw in slightly more complex things too. It's about making the message clear.
So it includes I+1, but also maybe some I+0 and even some I+2, all mixed together naturally.
Precisely. The focus is on communication, and the I+1 comes along for the ride. You don't need a linguistic analysis of every sentence.
Okay, so we need this comprehensible input, this CI. That's the fuel. But you mentioned something blocking it, the filter.
Right. The fuel's no good if the engine's blocked. This is the effective filter hypothesis from Dulé and Burt originally. Think of it as a kind of emotional shield.
An emotional shield? Like what?
Things like anxiety, feeling self-conscious, being defensive about making mistakes, even just general stress. These negative emotions, they basically raise this filter.
And it stops the input getting in to the part of the brain that does the acquiring.
Exactly. It's like trying to pour water into a bottle with the cap on, as you said earlier, perhaps, if you're terrified of speaking or bored out of your mind by the material.
Yeah, I could see that. The input just bounces off.
It doesn't stick. The emotional state blocks it. So the absolute key goal for any learner, or any teacher, really, is to create a low-filter situation.
Meaning you need to be relaxed, motivated.
Relaxed, motivated, confident, interested in the message. When the filter is low, that CI can flow straight into the acquisition machinery. This low-filter environment is non-negotiable for fast progress.
And this ties back to the compulsory idea, doesn't it? Because forcing yourself through boring stuff probably raises that filter sky high.
Absolutely. And the sources really hammer this point home. We drastically underestimate the sheer amount, the quantity of CI we need.
Right. There's not a quick dip. You need an ocean of it.
An ocean is a good way to put it, just to get to a decent level. And trying to consume that much input when you find it boring or stressful, it's just not sustainable. Your filter goes up, acquisition stops. That's why making it compulsory through interest is so vital.
Okay, so this is the core strategy then. How do we actually drink that ocean of CI without drowning in boredom or effort, making it compulsory, making it addictive?
Yeah, the sources basically offer an anti-boredom manifesto. It's simple. If learning feels like hard work, if it's unpleasant, endless grammar drills, memorizing word lists out of context, you're just not going to stick with it long enough.
Makes sense. We need tools that work, scientifically speaking, but maybe even more than that.
They have to be fun, or at least engaging enough that you want to use them. The process should feel less like homework and more like, well, checking your favorite website.
Like scrolling Reddit or something. You do it because you get these little hits of interesting stuff.
Exactly that dopamine loop. When you find a cool fact or understand a new idea, your brain gives you a little reward. We need to harness that for language learning. Find the stuff that triggers your curiosity.
And this is where we loop back to our main focus today. The core of compulsory CI is picking content that's so absorbing, so relevant to your life or your interests, that you just focus on the meaning.
You get lost in the story or the argument or the information, and when that happens, you essentially forget you're doing it in another language.
That's the magic trick, isn't it? You're not consciously thinking, okay, what tense is that? You're thinking, what happens next? Or do I agree with that point?
Yes. And the language acquisition, it just happens quietly in the background. Your effective filter is down because you're genuinely engaged, not stressed about performance.
That focus on the message itself lowers the filter.
By sheer force of interest, one polyglot in the sources put it beautifully. Language study wasn't a burden for him. It was this constant source of joy and intellectual adventure.
That's the mindset. Curiosity makes it compulsory.
It fuels the engine.
But, okay, practical question. What if my big passion is like super niche, say, competitive dog grooming or the history of Mesopotamian pottery? How do I find input that's interesting and at that I+1 level, not just expert jargon?
That's a great question. And yeah, niche interests require a bit more hunting. You have to be strategic. First, look for introductory materials, maybe simplified histories, popular science-style articles, even if they're older. Anything aimed at a general audience in that language.
Okay.
Second, dive into online communities. Forums, Facebook groups, blogs dedicated to that niche. Often, enthusiasts discuss complex topics using relatively simpler language because the shared passion is the focus, not linguistic perfection.
So the conversation might be naturally simpler?
Often, yes. And third, visuals are your best friend. Find documentaries or YouTube videos on your topic, even if the spoken language is complex. Turn on subtitles in the target language if you can. The images, the action, it provides so much context.
Right. The visuals make potentially difficult audio comprehensible. It turns I+10 into I+1.
Exactly. It bridges the gap. And this power of compelling context is perfectly illustrated by the classic immersion success story, isn't it?
The person who moves abroad, falls in love, and suddenly speaks fluent Italian.
Yeah, they're swimming in the language constantly. The need to communicate, the emotional connection, the everyday life. It's brute force CI 24/7. The effective filter is low because survival and connection depend on it. Forgetting is impossible because the input is relentless.
So if we can't just pack up and move to Florence.
We have to recreate that compelling environment as best we can, and media stories are probably our best tool.
So ditch the boring dialogues and watch movies, TV shows, YouTube, anything with a narrative.
Absolutely. Watch for the story. The visuals are doing so much work for you. Expressions, context, action. It all helps you decode the language that's just above your level, making it comprehensible.
Makes sense.
And a really good tip from the sources: try reading a summary before you watch. In the target language if possible, but even in your own language helps.
Why that?
It preloads your brain. You pick up key names, plot points, maybe some crucial vocabulary. So when you watch, you're not completely lost. It lowers the processing load, keeps the filter down, makes the whole thing feel easier and more enjoyable.
So you turn potential frustration into more of a guided adventure. Okay, I like that. And can we even apply this compulsory through interest idea to, dare I say it, grammar?
We absolutely can, and we should. Forget the mind-numbing drills, the fill-in-the-blanks. Those just raise the filter for most people.
So what do we do instead? Just ignore grammar books?
No, use them strategically. Think of a grammar book as a quick reference guide, a map. You read the explanation to get the conscious overview, the learned knowledge, but you skip the boring exercises.
Okay, so what do you memorize then?
You pick out a few really interesting example sentences that illustrate the rule. Sentences that stick in your mind, maybe because they're funny or useful or related to your interests.
So instead of just the abstract rule,
You grab concrete examples, like take Italian plurals. Instead of just drilling O becomes A for masculine nouns, you find examples you like. Maybe you love Italian food.
like pizza becoming pizzas, or gelato becoming gelati.
Exactly. Those are delicious, memorable examples. You memorize those specific phrases or short sentences because they're relevant and interesting to you. They become powerful, comprehensible input snippets for your subconscious acquisition system.
So the conscious mind gets the simple rule explanation, but the acquisition system gets fed these interesting concrete examples.
Right. You move on quickly from the abstract rule, letting the pattern recognition system do the heavy lifting in the background with the good stuff you fed it.
Right, so we figured out how to get tons of input in a way that's actually enjoyable using compulsory CI. That lowers the filter. But now, the big enemy, forgetting.
Yeah, it's the constant battle, isn't it? Immersion kind of solves it with sheer volume, like we said. But if you're learning at home, you need a plan, a system to make sure this hard-won knowledge actually sticks.
We need to make the memories stronger right from the start.
Exactly. And this is where the concept of levels of processing comes in. It's about how deeply you engage with new information.
Okay, explain that.
Well, imagine you learn a new word. Let's use that Icelandic example from the sources. Miller, meaning mead. If you just write it down once with a definition, that's shallow processing.
It's in one ear, out the other.
Pretty much. It's easily forgotten because there's no strong hook, no rich context. We need to go deeper.
What makes processing deeper?
Engaging more senses, creating more connections. And the sources are really clear on this. Visual memory is incredibly powerful. We have a phenomenal capacity for remembering images.
It was that study mentioned, right? College students remembering pictures.
Yeah, astonishing results. They could recognize something like 98.5% of pictures they'd seen before, even out of hundreds shown quickly. Our visual memory is just extraordinary. We have to leverage it.
So for vocabulary, don't just write the word. Link it to a picture.
Yes. Find an image online, or even better, draw one yourself on your flashcard. It doesn't matter if you're a terrible artist, stick figures are fine.
Why is drawing better?
Because the act of creating the image, even a bad one, forces deeper processing. You're actively thinking about the concept visually, linking the abstract word, partir, to leave, to a concrete image, someone walking out a door. It encodes the memory in multiple ways.
Okay, visual is strong. Is there anything even stronger?
Yes. The absolute deepest level, according to the research, is personal connection.
Making it about me, my life.
Exactly. Linking new information to your own experiences, your own memories. The data suggests this makes something around 50% more memorable.
50%? That's huge.
It really is. So, if you learn the Spanish word gato for cat, don't just link it to a generic cat picture. Link it to your cat. or your childhood cat.
Ah, like my old cat, Whiskers. So I picture Whiskers when I see Gato.
Precisely. Now, it's not just a word. It's tied into your personal history, your emotions. It builds this rich network of connections in your brain, making the memory robust, easy to find again. It becomes almost unforgettable.
Okay, so we create strong memories using visuals and personal links. But memories still fade, right? How do we fight that decay over time?
That's where timing becomes everything. We need to review things just as we're about to forget them. And the most efficient way to do that is with spaced repetition systems, or SRS.
SRS, like
Right.
Anki or other flashcard apps.
Exactly. Those apps are basically algorithms designed to perfectly time your reviews based on the forgetting curve. They show you a flashcard right when your memory for it is weakest, just before it disappears.
So the recall is difficult, but not impossible.
Right. That effortful recall is what strengthens the memory trace most effectively. It forces your brain to work to retrieve it, making the connection stronger for next time.
And the efficiency gains are pretty massive, aren't they?
They really are. The sources mention learning something like 3,600 flashcards over 4 months, maybe 30 minutes a day. With 95% accuracy, that's a huge amount of vocabulary retention for a manageable time investment.
Wow. And you could even do this without software, right? The old paper system?
Oh yeah, the Lightner box
Yeah.
system. Simple but brilliant. You have different boxes representing different review intervals. Level 1 is reviewed often. Level 5 maybe once a month.
How does it work?
Card starts in level 1, get it right, it moves to level 2, longer interval, get it right again, level 3 even longer. But if you forget it, at any level,
Back to level 1.
all the way back, it forces you to spend your precious time on the stuff you don't know and waste less time on the stuff you already know well. It's just incredibly efficient.
Okay, so SRS is key for retention. But it's not just about flashcards, is it?
No, absolutely not. That leads to isolated knowledge. One source calls it the multi-track attack. You need a mix of tools working together.
Like what?
Your SRS flashcards, yes. But also grammar references, phrase books, dictionaries, maybe audio courses, and definitely lots of authentic media, reading news, watching shows, listening to podcasts.
How do they work together?
They create this synergy.
Yeah.
You learn a word on a flashcard, maybe it feels a bit abstract, then suddenly you see or hear that same word in a real context, like a newspaper article you're reading for interest.
Ah, the rub-off effect.
Exactly. Your brain goes, hey, I know that word. It's not some alien invader anymore. It's like bumping into an old friend. That cross-context encounter makes the word stick like glue.
And it feels good,
Yeah.
like a little win.
A huge win. It reinforces the learning, makes it feel relevant, and keeps that compulsory CI cycle going because it's rewarding.
Okay, we've got the input side covered. Make it comprehensible, make it compulsory through interest, and use smart techniques to make it stick. But what about actually using the language? Speaking, writing, output.
Ah, yes. The big output debate. Does speaking just emerge naturally once you have enough input? Or is it a totally separate skill you have to drill?
What do the sources suggest?
Well, it seems to be a bit of both, practically speaking. The structures you acquire through all that CI, they will start to come out. You'll find yourself producing sentences you never consciously learned. But turning that internal knowledge into smooth, coherent sounds or written text, that takes practice. It's a performance skill, like playing an instrument. You need to practice the mechanics of getting it out accurately and quickly.
So how do you practice output effectively without just getting frustrated?
One key is to turn output practice into more input. When you're talking to someone and you get stuck, don't just freeze up. Use it as a learning opportunity.
Ow.
Use conversational management tricks. One source calls it language larceny.
Language larceny. Sounds intriguing. Stealing words.
Kind of. When you hit a word you don't know or a structure you can't quite form, you actively ask the native speaker for help. How do you say it? What's the word for? Could you say that again?
So you're essentially using the conversation partner as a live dictionary or tutor.
Exactly. You can ask them to correct you too. Please correct my mistakes. You're stealing targeted, relevant vocabulary and corrections in real time, turning your output struggle into perfect input.
Give me an example phrase a listener could use.
Sure. If you're stuck, instead of silence, try. I'm looking for the right word here. How would you express the idea of explain concept simply? Or even, is my pronunciation okay on that word? Could you say it for me?
That keeps the conversation going and gives you exactly what you need. Keeps the filter low, too, presumably, because you're taking control.
Right. You're managing the interaction proactively.
Okay, but before we even get to complex words, there's the basic hurdle. Pronunciation, the Sort of to say it's like the first impression, right? People judge you on it instantly.
It's often the very first filter people apply, fairly or unfairly, and the root cause is often perception, literally not hearing the difference between sounds that don't exist in your native language.
Like the classic R and L for Japanese speakers.
Exactly. If rock and lock sound identical to your brain, you can't reliably produce them differently. Your ear needs training first.
And this is trainable, using ear training.
Absolutely. The brain is plastic. Research using minimal pair testing, where you have to distinguish between very similar sounds like ship and sheep, shows remarkable results.
How quickly?
With immediate feedback systems, like a simple computer program showing right or wrong, learners could essentially rewire their auditory perception for new sounds in as little as 3 20-minute sessions.
Wow, just an hour of focused practice.
With the right tool and immediate feedback, yes, the ears can learn fast.
Okay, ear trained? Now the mouth. What about those monster words like long German compounds or tricky consonant clusters?
For those mechanical challenges, there's a great technique called back-chaining.
Back-chaining, how does that work?
Instead of starting at the beginning of the word and inevitably tripping up, you start at the end. Master the last sound or syllable, then add the one before it, then the one before that.
So for that German word Höchstgeschwindigkeitsbegrenzung, you'd start with Zung.
Exactly. Master, Sung, then Grenzung, then Keitsbegrenzung. You build it backwards, piece by piece. Or the Russian example, Vidsdragnu, to flinch. You'd practice nu, then rognu, then drognu, then vizadragnu.
Huh. It breaks down the impossible into manageable chunks, like learning a tricky riff on a guitar.
Precisely. It's muscle memory for your mouth. And because it's purely mechanical, focusing on the sounds, not the meaning, it doesn't tend to raise the affective filter. It's just a physical exercise.
Got it. Now let's swing back to conscious learning for a second. We know acquisition is king, but when he's deliberately learning grammar rules with the monitor actually useful?
The monitor, that internal editor, is really only helpful for rules that are simple, easy to remember, and don't take much mental effort to apply.
Like what kind of rules?
Usually things involving simple additions or changes, like adding the is for third-person singular in English, he walks, or basic contractions like knowing de plus le becomes du in French. Simple, clear-cut stuff.
Things you can quickly check after you've sort of instinctively formed the sentence.
Yes, but it's very limited. The monitor is slow, you have to consciously think about the rule, and it only covers a tiny fraction of the grammar needed for fluency. Complex things like choosing the right tense in a long sentence or word order in subordinate clauses, that has to come from acquired competence.
So understanding the message in CI builds the core competence. The monitor is just for a little bit of polishing on simple rules.
That's a good way to put it. It can't replace acquisition.
Okay, one more efficiency point. Language families. This seems like a huge strategic advantage.
Oh, it's massive leverage. If you learn one language, you get a significant head start on its relatives because they share vocabulary, grammar structures, ways of thinking.
Like Spanish and Italian.
Huge overlap there. Romance languages are a great example. Or Slavic languages learn Russian, and Polish or Czech become much easier. Serbo-Croatian and Bulgarian are apparently around 70% similar.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah. The source estimated learning the whole Slavic family is like getting 6 languages for the effort of maybe 2 3/4. You're building on existing mental infrastructure. It's smart.
Avoid starting from absolute zero everything.
Oh.
Okay, last point of this section. Using output to refine input.
This closes the loop beautifully. You practice speaking or writing, maybe with a tutor or language exchange partner. They correct you. And then you turn every single correction into a new flashcard for your SRS.
Ah. So instead of generic word lists,
you're drilling the exact things you personally get wrong. You're targeting your specific knowledge gaps, making your input perfectly tailored and therefore compulsory because it directly addresses your immediate needs.
That feels incredibly efficient. Using your mistakes to generate the perfect learning material.
It's precision learning. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, that was a really deep dive into the science behind actually getting fluent. We've gone way beyond just study harder.
We really have. We started with needing that massive amount of comprehensible input, but the game changer is making it compulsory comprehensible input.
Right. Finding stuff that's so interesting, so relevant to you that you forget you're learning.
Which drops that affective filter right down.
Letting the input flood in and do its subconscious work. And then pairing that with smart memory techniques, visuals, personal connections.
And the surgical precision of spaced repetition to beat forgetting. Plus the practical output skills like language larceny and backchaining.
It's a whole system.
Yeah.
But the final thought you mentioned, from the sources, it's not just about learning a language, is it? It actually changes your brain.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The sources suggest language learning is basically strength training for the brain. Think about it. To use a new language, you constantly have to suppress your native language.
You have to actively ignore the English words popping into your head if you're trying to speak Spanish.
Exactly. You're constantly managing interference, forcing your attention, filtering out noise. That process, done consistently,
It makes your brain stronger, like lifting weights for your mind.
that's the idea. Your brain demonstrably gets better at focusing, at cognitive control, at executive function in general. Problem solving, creativity, attention, they all seem to get a boost.
So you don't just seem smarter when you speak another language.
You actually are measurably smarter in some ways. You develop cognitive advantages associated with bilingualism even if you start as an adult.
That's a pretty powerful motivator right there. It's not just about communication, it's about upgrading your own brain.
Absolutely. So the final takeaway really is find what compels you, dive into that ocean of interesting input, trust the acquisition process, and know that you're not just learning words, you're building a stronger, more flexible mind along the way. Get hooked on the process, and fluency becomes the natural result.